The Krethian Dominion had never lost a battle. Not in 3,000 years. Not across 847 conquered star systems. Their war machines moved like clockwork, precise and unstoppable. Every attack was calculated by massive computers. Every defense was mathematically perfect. When the Krethian fleet arrived at a new world, the outcome was already decided before the first shot was fired. The Galactic Council knew this. Every species that had ever faced the Krethians knew this. Some surrendered immediately. Others fought and were destroyed within days. The pattern never changed. The Krethians were not cruel, but they were absolute. Resistance was mathematically pointless. So when the Krethians turned their attention to humanity, most species expected the usual outcome. Humans were newcomers to the galaxy. Barely 2 generations past their first faster-than-light engine. Their ships were crude. Their weapons were simple. Their tactics were borrowed from older races who pitied them enough to share basic knowledge. By every calculation, humanity would fall in less than 48 hours. Admiral Vexthor commanded the invasion fleet from his flagship, the Eternal Calculation. He was tall and thin, with gray skin and 4 eyes that could process battle data faster than most species could think. He had conquered 17 systems personally. He had never retreated. Never failed. He reviewed the human defenses with mild interest, the way a master craftsman might examine the work of a child. 32 warships, his tactical officer reported. Primitive fusion drives. Kinetic weapons with some plasma cannons. No shield technology beyond basic deflectors. They have positioned themselves in a defensive sphere around their core worlds. Vexthor nodded. Standard prey formation. They will attempt to make us fight through layers of ships. The computer predicts their collapse in 6 hours and 43 minutes. He paused. Engage. The Krethian fleet moved forward like a silver tide. 200 warships, each one larger and more powerful than anything humanity had ever built. Their weapons charged with perfect synchronization. Their formation was flawless. The computers calculated firing solutions for every human vessel simultaneously. The human fleet opened fire first. Desperate. Brave. Pointless. Railgun slugs and plasma bolts splashed against Krethian shields. A few shots penetrated, doing minimal damage. The Krethians returned fire with methodical precision. Human ships exploded one after another, each exactly when the computer predicted. Some tried to break formation. Some tried to ram. Some simply fled. It made no difference. Within 4 hours, the human defense fleet was burning debris, all except one ship. Analysis, Vexthor commanded, studying the single remaining vessel on his display. Unknown class, the tactical officer said, his voice uncertain for the first time. The signature is human, but the design is unlike their other ships. It has not engaged. It has not fled. It is simply waiting. The ship was strange indeed. Where human vessels were boxy and functional, this one was sleek and angular. It was half the size of a Krethian cruiser but shaped like a predator's tooth. Its hull was black, absorbing sensor beams instead of reflecting them. No identification markers, no fleet designation, just silence. Hail them, Vexthor ordered. No response. Scan for life signs. 1, the tactical officer reported. Single human biosignature. The entire ship appears to be operated by one individual. Vexthor's 4 eyes narrowed. 1? Impossible. A ship that size requires at least 50 crew members. Nevertheless, Admiral, sensors confirm only one life form aboard. This was not in the calculations. Vexthor felt something he had not experienced in decades. Uncertainty. He studied the lone ship with growing curiosity. Deploy 4 cruisers. Disable and capture. I want to understand what we are seeing. The 4 Krethian ships broke formation and moved toward the mysterious vessel. Their weapons locked on. Capture beams charged. The strange black ship did not move, did not power weapons, did not raise shields. It simply floated in the void like a tombstone among the wreckage of its fleet. Then, as the cruisers closed to firing range, it moved. The acceleration was impossible. Human ships could not move that fast without crushing their crews. The black vessel simply vanished from its position and reappeared behind the lead cruiser. A single lance of white-hot energy erupted from its bow, drilling through shields and armor before the Krethian ship's computer could even register the attack. The cruiser exploded. The remaining 3 ships spun, trying to track the target, but it was already gone. It wove between them like a dancer, too fast, too agile. Another beam lashed out. Another cruiser died. The last two fired desperately, but the black ship anticipated every shot, sliding through the barrage as if it knew where each blast would be before it was fired. In 40 seconds, all 4 cruisers were destroyed. The black ship stopped exactly where it had started, perfectly still once more. Vexthor stared at his display. His tactical computer was flashing error messages. The pattern of movement made no sense. No pilot could survive those accelerations. No ship could turn that quickly. No targeting system could be that accurate without proper sensor locks. How? The tactical officer whispered. A communication channel opened. A human voice, female, calm. I am Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earthship Defiant. You have entered human space without permission. You have destroyed our fleet. You have killed thousands of my people. A pause. Now you face me. Vexthor studied the ship again. The Defiant. 1 ship, 1 human. Captain Chen, you cannot win. Surrender and your life will be spared. You calculate everything, don't you? Chen's voice carried a strange emotion Vexthor did not recognize. Every move. Every outcome. You think war is mathematics. Let me teach you something, Admiral. Humans don't fight wars to win. We fight wars because someone needs to fight them. And I'm not done fighting. The channel closed. The Defiant's engines flared to life and it accelerated toward the asteroid belt at the edge of the system. Vexthor watched it go. His computers urged him to pursue and destroy this anomaly. But something made him hesitate. The human's words echoed in his mind. Humans don't fight to win. What did that mean? What kind of species fought battles they knew they would lose? Pursue, he ordered finally. But maintain formation. Use overwhelming force. I want that ship captured intact. The Krethian fleet began to move. 200 ships against 1. The computers calculated the humans' defeat would occur within hours. But for the first time in 3,000 years, Admiral Vexthor wondered if his computers might be wrong. In the darkness of space, among the shattered remains of humanity's defense fleet, the Defiant disappeared into the asteroids. Inside, connected to every system through neural interface cables piercing her skull and spine, Sarah Chen smiled. The pain was incredible. The neural feedback made her vision blur and her hands shake. But she was alive. Her ship was alive. And the Krethians were about to learn that mathematics could not calculate human stubbornness. The battle had only just begun. Sarah Chen floated in darkness, but she was not alone. She could feel the Defiant around her, through her, inside her. Every sensor was an extension of her sight. Every weapon was an extension of her hands. Every thruster was an extension of her will. The neural interface cables buried in her spine transmitted more data than any human brain was designed to handle. It hurt. Everything hurt. But pain meant she was still alive. The asteroid belt stretched before her like a forest of stone. Rocks the size of cities drifted in ancient patterns, their surfaces scarred by billions of years of collisions. The Defiant slipped between them silently, its black hull invisible against the darkness. Behind her, Sarah could feel the Krethian fleet approaching. 200 ships. Perfect formation. Absolute confidence. She checked her weapons. 1 spinal lance cannon, the weapon that had destroyed those 4 cruisers. 8 missile tubes, 12-point defense turrets, and 1 railgun that fired slugs the size of cars. Against 200 warships, it was laughably inadequate. But Sarah was not trying to win. She was trying to make them bleed. Defiant to human command, she transmitted on the emergency channel. If anyone is listening, I am engaging the enemy. Do not attempt rescue. Do not attempt support. Just remember that someone stood here, no response. Maybe the command structure was destroyed. Maybe they were already running. It did not matter. Sarah had volunteered for this mission knowing she would not come back. The Defiant was experimental, built in secret, designed for one purpose: to prove that human innovation could match alien superiority. The neural interface was untested. The acceleration would crush a normal crew. The AI assistance was minimal. It was designed for one pilot who was willing to die. Sarah had been that pilot. A disgraced commander, blamed for losing a battle against pirates 2 years ago. Stripped of command, offered this suicide mission as her only chance at redemption. She had accepted immediately. Not for redemption, but because someone needed to show the galaxy that humans did not surrender easily. The Krethian fleet entered the asteroid belt. Sarah watched through a dozen sensors as they shifted into hunting formation. Patterns within patterns, mathematical perfection. They moved like they owned the universe. Maybe they did. Maybe they would continue owning it after she was dead. But she would make them remember her first. She picked her target. A heavy cruiser on the outer edge of the formation. It was scanning asteroids methodically, confident that its shields could deflect any ambush. Sarah moved the Defiant directly above it, using a massive asteroid for cover. She waited. Patience was important. Let them come to her. Let them feel safe. The cruiser passed below her position. Sarah dropped the Defiant like a stone, engines cold, falling in silence. 3 seconds. 2 seconds. 1. Fire. The spinal lance punched through the cruiser's shields at point-blank range. The Krathian ship never had time to react. It simply exploded, torn in half by the energy beam. Sarah was already moving, engines screaming to full power, diving back into the asteroids before the other ships could target her. Alarms shrieked. Return fire filled the space she had just occupied. Plasma bolts melted asteroids into slag. Missiles detonated in chains of light. But the Defiant was already gone, weaving between rocks, changing vectors every few seconds. Sarah's vision blurred. Blood ran from her nose. The neural feedback was too much. The pain was incredible. She laughed. 1 down, she transmitted on open channels. 199 to go. Who's next? Admiral Vexthor heard her voice aboard the Eternal Calculation. His tactical computer was recalculating constantly, trying to predict her next move. Every model failed. The human was not following any known combat doctrine. She appeared, killed, and vanished. No pattern, no logic, just violence. Deploy hunter groups, Vexthor ordered. Teams of 5. Cover every sector. Use the asteroids for cover yourselves. Match her tactics. The Krathian fleet split into 40 groups, each consisting of 5 ships. They moved into the asteroid belt carefully, using the same cover the human had used. Vexthor watched his display with satisfaction. The human was skilled, but she was still one ship. She could not be everywhere. The computer calculated her capture or destruction within 6 hours. Sarah watched the Krathians split up and smiled through the pain. Perfect. Divide and conquer worked both ways. She selected the closest hunter group and moved toward them silently. 5 ships searching in formation. She positioned herself inside a hollow asteroid. Engines cold, waiting like a spider in its web. The 5 Krathian ships passed her position. Sarah counted to 3, then fired all 8 missiles at once. They streaked from the asteroid, targeting different ships. The Krathians reacted instantly, point defense systems tracking and destroying 6 missiles. 2 got through. 2 ships exploded. Sarah was already accelerating in the opposite direction as return fire vaporized the asteroid she had been hiding in. She looped around a massive rock, using its gravity to slingshot toward another hunter group. This time she used the railgun, firing through an asteroid to hit a ship on the other side. The kinetic slug punched through rock and shields, crippling the Krathian vessel. Hours passed. Sarah struck and vanished, struck and vanished. She used the environment like a weapon. She collapsed asteroids onto pursuing ships. She hid in debris fields. She fired from impossible angles. The Krathians adapted, becoming more cautious, more defensive. But Sarah adapted faster. Every time they changed tactics, she changed hers. By the 8th hour, Sarah had destroyed 9 ships and damaged 14 more. She was also dying. The neural interface was burning out her brain. She could taste copper. Her hands shook. One eye would not focus properly. The Defiance AI kept suggesting she disengage. She ignored it. Attention Krathian fleet, she broadcast. You are the undefeated conquerors of the galaxy. You have perfect tactics, perfect weapons, perfect calculations. But you forgot something important. Humans are not perfect. We are stubborn. We are crazy. And we do not know when to quit. Come and get me. Aboard the Eternal Calculation, Admiral Vexthor listened to her words. His tactical officer reported the losses with disbelief in his voice. 9 ships destroyed, 14 damaged, by 1 human. In 8 hours. The numbers made no sense. She is taunting us, the tactical officer said. No, Vexthor replied slowly. She is warning us. She wants us to know what we are facing. He studied the battle data looking for patterns. There were none. Every attack was different. Every tactic was unpredictable. The human fought like someone with nothing to lose, because she had nothing to lose. Pull back the hunter groups, Vexthor ordered. Reform the main fleet. We will drive her out of the asteroids with overwhelming force. The Krathian ships withdrew, regrouping at the belt's edge, 191 ships in perfect formation. They began advancing through the asteroids, weapons firing continuously, destroying every rock large enough to hide behind. It was inefficient. It was wasteful. But it would work. The human would run out of hiding places. Sarah watched them come. The sustained barrage was destroying her cover. She had maybe an hour before the asteroids were gone. She checked her systems. The spinal lance needed 4 more hours to recharge. She had 6 missiles left. The railgun had ammunition for 20 more shots. Her neural interface was degrading rapidly. She would be unconscious in 2 hours, dead in 4. Time to change the game. She set a course out of the asteroid belt, engines at full power, not bothering to hide. The Krathians saw her immediately and gave chase. Sarah accelerated toward open space, the entire fleet following. She transmitted one more message: "You want me, Admiral? Then catch me. But I promise you, the cost will be higher than your computers can calculate. I will make you pay for every meter of human space in blood and burning metal. Come on, let's see how long your perfect record lasts against someone who refuses to lose." Behind her, the Krathian fleet pursued. Vexthor watched the fleeing ship with troubled eyes. She was leading them somewhere. This was a trap. But what kind of trap could one ship set for 200? The computers found no answer. For the first time in his life, Admiral Vexthor was fighting an enemy he could not understand. And deep in her pain, connected to her ship through technology that was killing her, Sarah Chen smiled and plotted her next move. 12 days. Sarah had been running and fighting for 12 days. The Defiant's hull was scarred with weapons impacts. Systems were failing one by one. The neural interface had nearly burned out her mind. She could no longer feel her legs. Her right hand trembled constantly. When she closed her eyes, she saw targeting data instead of darkness. But she was still alive, still fighting, still making the Krathians pay. The chase had taken them across 3 human systems. Everywhere Sarah went, she found new ways to hurt the enemy. She had led them through a comet tail, using the debris to mask a missile ambush. She had used a gas giant's gravity well to slingshot behind their formation. She had even rammed one of their frigates, the Defiant's reinforced bow tearing through it before she jumped to faster-than-light speed, escaping before the debris could destroy her. 47 Krathian ships were damaged. 12 were completely destroyed. By one human. By one ship. The galaxy was watching now. Other species intercepted the Krathian communications and heard the growing frustration in their transmissions. The undefeated empire was being humiliated by a single enemy who refused to die. Sarah knew she was becoming a symbol. Human resistance cells sent her encrypted messages of support. Some even tried to resupply her, dropping fuel pods and ammunition at coordinates she transmitted. Most were caught by Krathian patrols, but a few got through. Enough to keep her fighting. Enough to make the legend grow. She had also started psychological warfare. She played human music on open channels. Old war songs, defiant anthems, rock music that made no sense to alien ears. She taunted the Krathians in between attacks. She quoted human philosophers and warriors. She made them angry. Anger led to mistakes. Mistakes led to openings. Openings led to kills. "This is Sarah Chen aboard the Defiant," she broadcast for the 100th time. "You know, Admiral Vexthor, I have been reading about your species while I kill your ships. You pride yourselves on logic, mathematics, perfect calculations. But here is a human saying for you. Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. How does it feel, Admiral? Does your perfect math account for this?" She fired 3 missiles at a destroyer that had gotten too close. 2 hit. The destroyer tumbled away, engines dead. Sarah was already moving, diving toward a nearby moon, using its shadow to break sensor lock. Aboard the Eternal Calculation, Admiral Vexthor sat in silence. His tactical officer had stopped making predictions. The computers had stopped offering guaranteed outcomes. Every model they built, the human violated. Every trap they set, she avoided or turned against them. She fought like no enemy they had ever faced. Without pattern. Without predictability. With nothing but will and violence. "She is getting weaker," the tactical officer noted. Sensor readings showed degraded reactor output. Damaged systems. "She cannot maintain this pace much longer." "She has been dying for 12 days, Vexthor replied. "Yet she is still here. Still fighting." He paused, studying the human's last known position. What drives a creature to fight beyond reason? Beyond hope? She mentioned it herself, Admiral. Stubbornness. Vexthor's 4 eyes narrowed. No, there is more. She is buying time. But for what? The human fleet is destroyed. Their colonies are defenseless. What is she delaying? The tactical officer checked his displays. Perhaps she believes reinforcements will arrive. Then she is deluded. There are no reinforcements. We have confirmed this. But even as Vexthor spoke, doubt crept into his mind. The human had been right about many things. What if she was right about this too? What if something was coming that his computers could not detect? Sarah Chen was indeed buying time, but not for reinforcements.
She was buying time for something simpler.
Time for the galaxy to watch. Time for other species to see that the Krethians could bleed. Time for humanity to evacuate their core worlds. Time for the legend to spread. She was not winning the war. She was making sure humanity would be remembered as the species that fought when fighting was pointless. The pain in her head had become permanent. She no longer remembered what it felt like to not hurt. The Defiance AI kept warning her about critical system failures. She ignored them all. As long as the engines worked and the weapons fired, nothing else mattered. She jumped into a new system and found something unexpected. A small alien cargo ship, species unknown, broadcasting in basic galactic standard. United Earthship Defiant, we bring supplies, fuel, medical supplies, ammunition, we cannot stay. Krethians are following. But we wanted you to know. The galaxy is watching. You are making a difference. The cargo ship dumped its load and jumped away before Sarah could respond. She collected the supplies with shaking hands, her vision blurring with tears. She did not know she could still cry. The medical supplies were useless. Her damage was beyond repair. But the ammunition and fuel meant she could fight for a few more days. And a few more days meant a few more Krethian ships destroyed. Thank you, she whispered to the empty void where the cargo ship had been. The Krethian fleet arrived 2 minutes later. Sarah was ready. She had positioned herself near a dying star, its radiation playing havoc with sensors. The Krethians approached cautiously, expecting another ambush. They were right to be cautious. Sarah had placed the cargo containers in a careful pattern, each one filled with volatile fuel and connected to remote detonators. When the Krethian vanguard entered the trap zone, Sarah triggered the containers. The explosions created a chain reaction that destroyed 6 ships and damaged 11 more. She used the chaos to close distance and fired her spinal lance at a battlecruiser. The beam carved the ship in half. Sarah laughed, tasting blood, and jumped away again. Vexthor watched another of his ships die and felt something he had never felt before. Fear. Not fear of death, fear of failure. The Dominion was watching. Other species were watching. His perfect record was becoming imperfect. One human was doing what entire civilizations had failed to do. She was making the Krethians look weak. Enough, he said quietly. Recall all ships. We reform at the edge of this system. I will speak with the human directly. The tactical officer looked shocked. Admiral, we do not negotiate with... I am not negotiating. I am understanding. This human has become something more than an enemy. She has become a problem that requires a different solution. Vexthor opened a direct channel. Captain Chen, this is Admiral Vexthor. I wish to speak with you. Sarah almost ignored the hail, but curiosity won. She opened the channel. What do you want, Admiral? Come to surrender? I want to understand. You cannot win. You know this. Yet you continue fighting. Why? Sarah laughed, the sound harsh and broken. Because someone has to. Because if I don't fight, then humanity dies forgotten. But if I fight, even if I lose, we become the species that stood against the undefeated. We become the species that made you bleed. That is worth dying for. Vexthor was silent for a long moment. You are buying time for evacuations. Partly. Mostly, I am buying time for the story to spread. Every day I survive, more species hear about the human who would not quit. Every ship I destroy, the Krethian Dominion looks a little less invincible. That is my victory, Admiral. Not defeating you. Just making you defeatable. You speak as if you have already won, haven't I? Your fleet was supposed to conquer us in 48 hours. It has been 12 days. You have lost dozens of ships to one human. Even if you kill me today, you have already lost something you can never get back. Your reputation for perfect victory. I did that. Me and my ship. We proved you can be beaten. Someone else will finish what I started. The channel went silent. Vexthor stared at his display, the human's words echoing in his mind. She was right. Even if they destroyed her now, the damage was done. The legend existed. The Krathian Dominion's aura of invincibility was broken. Other species would see this. Other species would dare to resist. One human had changed the galaxy, and Vexthor did not know how to calculate what that meant for the future. Admiral Vexthor stood alone in his private quarters, something he rarely did. Around him floated holographic displays showing human history, human wars, human art, human philosophy. He had been studying them for 3 days, trying to understand the mind of Captain Sarah Chen, trying to understand how a species so young, so primitive, could produce a warrior like her. What he found disturbed him deeply. Humans had been at war with themselves for their entire recorded history. They fought over land, resources, ideas, and beliefs. They created weapons specifically designed to kill other humans. Their history was written in blood. But within that violence, Vexthor found something else, something that made his 4 eyes widen with understanding. Humans did not fight to win. They fought because not fighting was worse. He found records of human battles where victory was impossible, yet humans fought anyway. He found stories of soldiers holding positions they could not keep, buying time for others to escape. He found accounts of pilots flying damaged ships into enemy vessels, sacrificing themselves for tactical advantage. He found a pattern that no Krathian computer could understand. Humans fought hardest when they were losing. When victory was impossible, they became most dangerous, because they were not trying to win. They were trying to make the cost unbearable. Sarah Chen was not an anomaly. She was the perfect example of human warfare. A message arrived from the Dominion High Command. Vexthor read it with his expression unchanging. The message was clear. Either destroy the human immediately or return in disgrace. The Dominion would not tolerate this humiliation continuing. They gave him 3 days. 3 days to end this, or his career was over, possibly his life. Vexthor looked at the tactical map. The Defiant was somewhere in the Sigma Nebula, a massive cloud of gas and dust where sensors barely functioned. The perfect hiding place, the perfect ambush location. Sarah Chen had led them here deliberately. She wanted a final battle. Tactical officer, Vexthor transmitted. Prepare the fleet. We enter the nebula with full deployment. I want every ship ready for combat. This ends today. The Krathian fleet approached the nebula like a silver wall. 153 ships remaining. Still overwhelming force. Still mathematically certain victory. But Vexthor no longer trusted the mathematics. He had learned that lesson in blood over the past 2 weeks. Inside the nebula, Sarah Chen watched them come. She was dying. Actually dying now, not just slowly like before. The neural interface had burned through most of her brain's motor control centers. She could barely move her left arm. Her vision was failing. Blood leaked from her ears and nose constantly. The Defiant's medical systems had given up trying to keep her alive. They were just managing pain now, but her mind was still sharp. Sharp enough for one more trick, one more trap, one more chance to hurt them. She had spent the last 3 days preparing. The Defiant's reactor was damaged beyond repair, leaking radiation. She had rigged it to overload, turning her ship into a massive bomb. She had also hacked together a false distress signal, broadcasting from deeper in the nebula. The signal claimed she was stranded, unable to maneuver, waiting for rescue that would never come. It was an obvious trap. Any tactical computer would see through it immediately, but Sarah was counting on something else. She was counting on Vexthor's need to end this. His need to capture her, to understand her, to prove that Krathian superiority still meant something. She was counting on pride. The Krathian fleet entered the nebula cautiously. Sensors were nearly useless in the dense gas. They relied on tight formation and overwhelming numbers. Vexthor positioned his flagship, the Eternal Calculation, at the center of the formation. Around him, ships moved in perfect coordination despite the poor visibility. Admiral, we are detecting the distress signal. It appears to originate from coordinates Delta 77. Vexthor studied the location, deep in the densest part of the nebula. Perfect ambush terrain. It is a trap. Obviously, Admiral. Should we ignore it? Vexthor was quiet for a long moment. No, we do not ignore it. The human expects us to avoid the obvious trap. So we spring it, but with overwhelming force concentrated at a single point. Deploy 30 ships in attack formation. The rest maintain perimeter. If she attacks, we will have her surrounded. It was sound tactics, logical. Precisely what Sarah expected. She watched through dying sensors as 30 Krathian ships broke formation, and moved toward her false signal. She waited until they were deep in the densest gas, their communication with the main fleet disrupted by interference. Then she moved. The Defiant dropped all stealth measures and accelerated to full power, pain screaming through Sarah's mind as the neural interface pushed her dying body beyond limits. She was not heading for the 30 ships. She was heading straight for the eternal calculation. Vexthor saw her coming and understood immediately. She was not trying to escape. She was going for a suicide run against his flagship.
All ships, intercept!
Protect the flagship. But the Krethian ships were scattered in the nebula. Formation broken, communication disrupted. They tried to converge on the Defiant, but Sarah had planned her approach perfectly. She wove through the gas clouds using every bit of cover, emerging directly in front of the eternal calculation with no ships between them. Reactor at critical, the Defiant's AI warned. Overload in 30 seconds. Sarah activated her final broadcast. Admiral Vexthor, you wanted to understand humans? Here is your lesson. We do not fight to win. We fight to make sure you lose too. See you in hell. She triggered the overload and pushed the engines to maximum, the Defiant accelerating like a missile toward the Krethian flagship. Vexthor's weapons fired, but at point-blank range there was no time to bring down her shields. The Defiant slammed into the eternal calculation's side at incredible speed. Sarah Chen had just enough time to eject in an escape pod before the reactor detonated. The explosion was catastrophic. The Defiant's reactor was military-grade, designed to power a battleship. When it overloaded, it released energy equivalent to a small nuclear weapon. The eternal calculation shields collapsed. Its hull ruptured. The flagship began to tear itself apart, but the damage did not stop there. The explosion triggered a chain reaction in the nebula's dense gas. The shockwave propagated outward, amplified by the unique chemistry of the cloud. 29 more Krethian ships were caught in the blast. Some were destroyed instantly. Others were crippled, tumbling through the gas with systems failing. Sarah's escape pod was thrown clear by the explosion, its tiny thrusters barely able to stabilize. Inside, Sarah was unconscious, her body finally giving up after 2 weeks of abuse. She floated in the darkness, unaware that she had just crippled the Krethian invasion fleet. Aboard the dying eternal calculation, Vexthor dragged himself from his command chair. His right side was burned. 2 of his eyes were damaged, vision blurred. Around him, his bridge crew was dead or dying. Emergency systems struggled to contain hull breaches. Damage report, he croaked. Admiral, the flagship is lost. Main power gone. Life support failing. We must evacuate. His surviving tactical officer helped him toward the escape pods. As they fled the dying ship, Vexthor looked back at the destruction. 30 ships destroyed or crippled. His flagship destroyed. All by one human who had turned her own death into a weapon. He understood now. Truly understood. Humans were not like other species. They did not fight by rules. They did not fight for victory. They fought because they had decided that survival without resistance was not survival at all. The Krethian fleet regrouped at the nebula's edge, battered and shocked. 124 ships remained functional. Vexthor was rescued from his escape pod and transferred to a cruiser. As he assumed command, he looked at the casualty reports with something approaching respect for his enemy. Orders, Admiral? His new tactical officer asked. Vexthor studied the tactical display. Somewhere in the nebula debris was an escape pod containing Sarah Chen. She might be dead. She might be alive. Either way, she had accomplished her mission. She had proven the Krethians could be beaten. She had shown the galaxy that humanity would not surrender quietly. We withdraw, Vexthor said quietly. Admiral, we withdraw. Send a message to the Dominion. Tell them the human resistance was more significant than anticipated. Tell them we require reinforcements before continuing the invasion. He paused. And dispatch rescue ships to locate Captain Chen's escape pod. If she is alive, I want her treated with honor. She has earned that much. The Krethian fleet began its retreat from human space. Behind them, the nebula slowly cleared. And floating in the darkness in a small escape pod with failing power, Sarah Chen dreamed of stars. The Galactic Council chamber had not seen such activity in 3 centuries. Representatives from 47 species crowded the floor, their voices creating a cacophony of different languages and communication methods. The holographic displays showed the same images repeatedly. The Defiant's final assault, the destruction of the eternal calculation, The Krathian fleet's retreat from human space. The undefeated empire had been defeated. By one human. By one ship. The Krathian representative stood at the center podium, his gray skin darker with what might have been shame or anger. Admiral Vexthor himself, recovered from his injuries but bearing scars across his face, addressed the council directly. The Dominion withdraws its claim on human territory, he announced, his voice carrying through translation devices. We propose a ceasefire and formal diplomatic relations. The chamber exploded with reaction. Some species cheered. Others argued. The Krathians had never withdrawn a claim before, never offered diplomacy to a species they had targeted for conquest. This was unprecedented. A counselor from the Vexian collective, one of the older species, raised a limb for attention. Explain, Admiral Vexthor. Your fleet numbered 200 ships. The humans had one vessel. By every mathematical model, victory was certain. Yet you retreat. Why? Vexthor was silent for a moment, his remaining eyes fixed on the images of the Defiant's last moments. Because mathematics cannot calculate will. Because our models did not account for a species that fights hardest when losing. Because one human in one ship cost us 89 warships and our flagship. If one human can do that, what could 1 million humans do? What could 1 billion? He turned to face the council directly. The Krathian Dominion has ruled through calculated superiority. We conquered species that we could mathematically defeat. But humans are not mathematical. They do not surrender when logic says they should. They do not retreat when the odds are impossible. Captain Sarah Chen fought for 2 weeks with injuries that should have killed her in hours. She destroyed nearly half our invasion fleet, and when faced with certain death, she turned herself into a weapon to hurt us one final time. Vexthor's voice grew quieter. The Dominion cannot afford to fight a species like that. The cost would be too high, not in ships or soldiers, but in the example they would set. If we continued this war and eventually won through overwhelming numbers, every species in the galaxy would have watched humanity's resistance. They would have seen that the Krathians can be beaten, can be hurt, can be forced to pay dearly for every conquest. The human defeat would have been our strategic loss. The council chamber fell silent. The implications were clear. Humanity had lost every battle except the one that mattered. They had lost their fleet, their defenses, their soldiers, but they had won something more important. They had won respect. They had won fear. They had proven they could make even the mighty Krathians reconsider. A message arrived at the council. The human government, reformed after the chaos of the invasion, requested emergency membership. The vote was immediate and unanimous. Humanity joined the Galactic Council not as victims needing protection, but as warriors who had earned their place. 3 months later, Sarah Chen woke up in a medical facility on Earth. Her first sensation was the absence of pain. After weeks of agony, the sudden relief was almost frightening. She tried to move and found her body responding normally. Slowly, carefully, she sat up. A doctor entered, smiling. Captain Chen, welcome back. You have been unconscious for 94 days. Your neural damage was extensive, but we have made remarkable progress. Some alien medical technology, courtesy of new friends in the Galactic Council. Sarah touched her head, feeling the scars where the interface cables had been. The Defiant? Destroyed. Along with Admiral Vexthor's flagship and 29 other Krathian ships. You took out 30 vessels in your final attack. The Krathians retreated. The war is over. Sarah closed her eyes, processing this. She had expected to die, had accepted it. Waking up alive felt strange, like she was existing past her expiration date. What happens now? Now you recover. And then, if you are willing, you have been offered command of humanity's first true battle fleet. We are building new ships, better ships, using technology shared by our new allies. They want you to lead them. Sarah looked out the window at the Earth below. Peaceful, safe. Because she had bought them time. Because she had made the Krathians think twice about the cost of conquest. It had worked. Her impossible mission had actually worked. 6 months later, Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant II, named in honor of her lost ship. Around her, 30 human warships formed a fleet. Real warships this time, built with galactic technology, crewed by humans who had volunteered after hearing her story. The fleet that should have existed the first time. The fleet that might have saved thousands of lives. But Sarah knew that fleet would never have earned what this one did. Her sacrifice, her 2 weeks of impossible fighting, had given humanity something no diplomatic mission could have achieved. Respect, fear, a reputation that would protect them for generations. Admiral, her tactical officer reported. We are receiving a transmission. Krethian origin. Sarah tensed, then relaxed. On screen, Admiral Vexthor appeared on the display. His scars had healed, but his face carried new lines of age. Admiral Chen, I heard of your recovery. I am pleased. Are you? I killed a lot of your people. You did what warriors do. You fought for your species with everything you had. I have come to respect that. Vexthor paused. I studied your history while recovering. I found something interesting. A human general once said that the purpose of war is not to die for your country, but to make the other person die for theirs. You embodied that principle perfectly. Sarah smiled slightly. Patton, good choice. So why are you contacting me, Admiral? To warn you. The Dominion has accepted the ceasefire, but there are other threats in the galaxy. Species that will see humanity's new prominence and feel threatened. You will face challenges. Let them come. We have proven we can handle challenges. Vexthor's expression might have been amusement. Indeed you have. Perhaps one day we will fight together instead of against each other. The galaxy is large. There is room for more than one warrior species. The transmission ended. Sarah stood on her bridge looking at her fleet and beyond them at the stars. Humanity had taken its first real steps into the galactic community. Not as victims, not as inferiors, but as equals who had earned their place through blood and determination. In the Defiance wreckage recovered and now displayed in a museum on Earth, a plaque had been installed. It read, "They ruled every battle with mathematics and certainty. Then one human showed them that some things cannot be calculated. Honor to Captain Sarah Chen and the UES Defiant, who taught the galaxy that humanity does not surrender." Students visited the wreckage daily. Children asked their parents about the scarred metal and the story of the lone ship. Veterans stood before it in silence, remembering. And in military academies across human space, cadets studied Sarah's tactics, learning not how to win, but how to make winning too expensive for the enemy. Sarah herself rarely visited the wreckage. She did not need to. She carried a piece of the Defiance hull plating with her always, a small fragment of metal scarred by weapons fire. It reminded her of what one person could do when they decided that some things were worth dying for. The galaxy had learned a lesson in those 2 weeks of desperate fighting. They had learned that humanity was not just another species to be cataloged and categorized. Humans were survivors, warriors, stubborn, illogical, and utterly unwilling to accept defeat, and that made them the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Years later, when historians wrote about the first human-alien war, they would note the strange outcome. Humanity had lost every conventional measure of victory. They lost their fleet, suffered massive casualties, and were hours away from complete defeat. Yet they emerged from the war stronger than before with new allies, new technology, and a reputation that would protect them for centuries. All because one human in one ship decided that making the enemy remember her was more important than surviving. All because Sarah Chen had shown the galaxy that humans fight hardest when they have nothing left to lose. The Krethian Dominion still existed, still powerful, still numerous, but they never again underestimated an enemy. They never again assumed that mathematics could predict every outcome. They never again forgot the lessons Sarah Chen had taught them at such terrible cost. Some things in the universe cannot be calculated, courage cannot be measured, stubbornness cannot be predicted. And humanity, it turned out, had more of both than any alien species had anticipated. Sarah stood on the bridge of Defiant 2 as her fleet prepared for its first patrol. Behind her was Earth safe and thriving. Ahead was the galaxy, full of wonders and dangers. She touched the fragment of hull plating in her pocket and smiled. The battle that changed everything was over. But humanity's story was just beginning.